All right, we are live with Showcase Zero 2025, which is the annual showcase for the Playtest Zero playtesting community. And the showcase is a thing that we do every year where we get people from the community who have been making and playtesting games to talk about the games that they've made and like the processes of like making them, playtesting them, share any learnings, or just shout out cool bits and ideas from like the things that they've made this year or this past year, since it's now 2026. We always do one looking back at the year that's gone. um, so in addition to our showcase, we also put together a bundle, an itch.io bundle that features, I think, most of the games that we will be talking about in the showcase today, and also some games from people who are not able to or chose not to do uh, um, uh, presentation for the showcase, but they're still cool games nonetheless. You can find that on itch.io, search for Showcase Zero 2025. And there's a link here as well, and I'll be posting the link out on social media and stuff. You can see there's a bunch of really cool games, some of which will be covered in like I mentioned, will be covered really soon. But yeah, go check that out on itch. And um, this Showcase Zero also marks the return of Playtest Zero. We take a break over the end of the year. We have our final meeting of the year, and then we take about 3 to 4 weeks break before we get started again. But we are starting again. We are starting again this coming Tuesday, 13th of January at 8 p.m. But that's at GMT +8. So that's the Southeast Asia friendly time slot that we have. Um, so that happens every other Tuesday at 8 p.m. And then our US friendly time slot is on Thursday, for the 15th of January at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. That is actually Friday, 10 a.m. For us over here in Southeast Asia, or this side of the world. But it's Thursdays at 6 and 9 p.m. In the US. So that's our US friendly time zone. If you can't make it exactly at that time, that's fine. We tend to like have a little bit of the first half an hour or so is usually catching up, like talking with catching up with friends and like seeing what people have been up to, and then we'll do a little bit of admin. I should actually just explain how Playtest Zero works and who we are, and what we do. But yeah, that's what's gonna happen. So if you come a little bit later, that's cool as well. Um, so Playtest Zero will continue every other week. From there, we run fortnightly. So every other Tuesday, every other Thursday. So those I'll be making posts about those on Blue Sky, and if you're in the Discord server, um, I will put out reminder posts every other week as well. And I might as well like continue explaining what Playtest Zero is actually. So Playtest Zero is a fortnightly playtesting meetup. We meet up every other week on a Discord server, and we get into like the voice lobby and get together to playtest our tabletop role playing games. So the way that we run is, yeah, like the first half an hour or so is probably just catching up, seeing how everyone's going, making sure people are there. Uh, Before the week starts, I will usually ask people what they have to playtest. Um, and that it's not a proper like sign up process. It's just to give an idea of like, hey, how many games do people have on the docket? Because when we get together to playtest, we just want to make sure that everyone has a chance, or like there's enough people to like playtest the games. Um, this is more like a temperature check, and then we kind of like I'm seeing the chat now, and we have some very good questions. So we get together to playtest games, and they don't need to be finished games. Playtest Zero's unofficial motto is there's no draft too rough. For Playtest Zero, thanks to Ari Santiago for that. We playtest games for at most or around 1 hour. Which is not a lot of time. Like a lot of times, like for tabletop RPGs, like a full session will be between 2 to 4 hours. But for us, Playtest Zero runs by doing short playtests, and the focus is on trying to be consistent and be an event that we run every other consistently every other week, and also gives opportunity and space for like more early stage prototypes, and also if you just want to playtest certain bits, we just want to encourage designers to kind of bring whatever it is. We will playtest it and or read it and discuss it. Sometimes we get together and we have a game that's just, hey, 2 sentences and a vibe. We'll playtest 2 sentences and a vibe. We'll discuss things, and sometimes if people don't have things to playtest, it's also cool to like bring questions or like topics to kind of like discuss if there's something that you're unsure about, if there's something that you want to learn more about and you want to talk with other game designers about it. One of the most fruitful quote unquote playtesting sessions I've had at Playtest Zero was just, hey, I'm having trouble writing prompts for this game that I'm making. I don't have any of the prompts ready, but I just want to like get a temperature and ask people about, hey, what are your favorite styles of prompts? How do you write prompts? So that's also one way that you could do play testing at Playtest Zero. And so that's something that we'll do every other week, and you're welcome to join us. We don't post the Discord link, the invite link to the Discord server publicly, just because we don't want bots like swarming the server. We don't have a lot of mods, but if you ask someone who is already in Playtest Zero, like myself or any of the people featured here, they will send you a link. We have a link that we can share. And also we have a couple of other annual events, one of which is happening right now. Showcase Zero is something that we do every year in January. That's just a celebration and reflection of game World's Least Secret Society. Yes. So Showcase Zero is a celebration and a reflection on games that we've made in the previous year. And then we'll have a play weekend that's in the middle of the year. That's something that we just started last year. So it will be sometime in June or July. And that's just a time for us because we have the Southeast Asia time friendly meetup and the US friendly meetup, and there's often no overlap between those two meetups. So we try to do one where we get the whole weekend to kind of like meet each other and play games together. It's not to say that we don't playtest games, but the focus is more about playing games together. There's also still playtesting, but the focus is to get together to play games. So we'll do that over a weekend, sometime in the middle of the year. And then at the end of the year, we have our Zero playtest, which is the reversal of Playtest Zero, where we get together and we can talk about games, but there's no playtesting allowed. That's just a fun way to kind of phrase our end of year social event / party, and we usually tend to do some kind of like weird Google Sheets thing. We started doing Google Sheets parties a couple of years ago, and we just did another one last year, which was held in a dead mall in a Google Sheet. Because most of our playtests are on Google Sheets, so we love Google Sheets as a space, and also on Discord. So yeah, that is Playtest Zero, and that's what's coming up for the rest of the year. So have look out for that. We'll be starting this coming week. And without further ado, I will push it to our presentations. So our first presentation is from Angel Amore. You can find them on that, and then I will queue up the video.
I'm Angel Amore, aka Cutest Patoot Games, and today I'm going to be talking about a game that I created for the Playtest Zero Parry Jam, and then got to test actually in Playtest Zero as well, and that made all the difference. And it really got me into PvP design this year, and that game is We Were One. So the inspiration for this came from the mechanic itself that I wanted to design with and a feeling that I wanted to evoke. When I thought about parrying, the main emotion that came out was frustration, but frustration rarely comes without other things. And so I knew I wanted to design a game that was focused around this feeling of frustration and then all of the feelings, the complex feelings underneath. And with that kind of tension, I thought it would be really cool to have a two-player game where you get to focus all of that tension on another person and on the space between you. And I wanted to see how I could translate it mechanically so that every bit of the game feels urgent and immediate and intense. Knowing I wanted this urgency meant that it became immediately clear to me that this game has to take place at the very end of a duel to the death. And then the sense of urgency also ended up influencing the base mechanic of the game. So the base mechanic of the game that I wanted was the system that I kept referring to as like very simple, like top trumps. You are basically laying down cards trying to beat each other or trying to parry in order to stay alive or, avoid being injured in this, big sword fight, basically. It gave me the structure, or gave me the feeling that I needed to be able to come up with the structure of 4 rounds and then sudden death. Technically, that card game, that little top trumps thing, was originally just like a stim that I had. But I thought if you make it 2 players, then it ends up being something that you can play extremely quickly. This rapid fire top trump thing where you're laying down cards, the aggressor chooses what card to lay down first. I actually made a cute little playmat. I can't show you because I'm moving and I already packed it up, but trust me, it's really cute. The one for the wrestling version of this game is even cuter. But you're laying them down. The opponent is trying to parry by choosing a card from what they have that would match and parry without knowing what the next ones are going to be. And you have to do this relatively quickly. And to me, it really evokes the feeling and imagery and urgency of the clashing of swords. That was actually a bit of feedback I got, that the physicality of it kind of really puts you in it. It also helped with the emotionality. It really helped kind of immerse a bit more. And so I went into the next round of edits for the game specifically trying to focus on that. And I did that with the damage charts. So it mattered what card specifically you were not able to parry in the round. For example, if the card I couldn't parry was a 4 of clubs, then I got a 1 blood droplet worth of damage to my left thigh. So I got like a shallow cut to my left thigh. That is really quick to look up, quick to note. All I have to remember is if it was 1, 2, or 3 blood droplets. I have to write that down on the side real quick. And I get to be like, okay, okay, cut to the thigh. The next thing is like, oh, cut to the abdomen for 3 blood points. Seriously stabbed. And it impacts your internal, like your feelings basically of how you're going through this. Sometimes it's a little close. Narratively, that's a lot of fun when it's just like blow, blow, block, block, slash, slash, and they're kind of meeting each other. But it's also really fun when suddenly in the half, like the cards just end up taking this turn where one of you is landing every blow and not parrying anything, and the other one like just cannot get a hit in. All of these things, they're a little bit up to chance, a little bit up to strategy, and they end up helping you tell this rapid pace like story, feeding into the dynamic that you created. And of course, I did not forget the jokers. They translate to dirty tricks and low blows because I liked having the idea of a more rare but a very playable, very possible mechanic that kind of pulled in the sense of history you're supposed to have with your, co-player. And this intimacy that you've shared as characters like in the past coming out as something you could weaponize. I think that's a little fun. It's a little nasty and I like that. Pretend there's 2 players here and these are their hands. Now they can't see each other's hands, but let's pretend this is the aggressor. The first thing they lay down is this 9 of clubs. So let's see if I have anything that beats that. I do. Let's save the ace, but I can use the king. Okay, I parried that. Done. The next blow that they dish out, they go for some heavier hitters. Let's say they lay down this 4. It's not very powerful of a hand. A 4, I'm like, okay. Now, what I could do is I could beat it with any of these cards. Just going to beat it with the same card. There we go. Then they're going to put down a 3. I can beat that. I can beat that with a relatively low card, and it's the same suit, which means that I get to ask them a secret in character, and they have to answer me truthfully in character. Now, the last 2 cards I have, like, as a 3, let's say they put down this 3. I have, again, the same suit. I can ask them another question. Last card that they put down is a 3. I can beat that with an ace. So I actually managed to go through an entire round without collecting any damage. I'm going to tell you right now, that doesn't happen very often. I actually really like that I managed to get around right now to show you guys where I parried everything that the aggressor was throwing at me, because that really builds that feeling of frustration on their part and evokes also different feelings in my own character. So basically I also got to ask them a question twice, which doesn't always happen. So basically I was in a nice sword fight with them, and I was parrying every blow. This person's trying to kill me. The swords clash, we're face to face, we're breathing heavy, we're near the end of the battle, and I ask them something absolutely out of pocket that they have to answer in the heat of the battle. And if you're playing as embittered rivals who were once best friends, if you're playing as an acolyte and their former deity, if you're playing with, exes, basically as dramatic as possible, and a knight and the, royal they used to protect, our swords clash, you look at each other dramatically, and you're like, did you ever love me? And they have to, potentially they're sitting there with their sword being like, no. And they, you have to deal with that in the moment. You don't have the time to process these emotions in character, but you have to go with them. You have to let them influence the story and build it. And I liked the balance that these mechanics created between emotionality, physicality, and urgency. Trying to design for a specific emotional experience was a really fun and cool challenge, especially within the context of PvP, because I feel like 2-player PvP is a really, really great vehicle for exploring these very high tension, high drama narratives. That element of gameplay narratively, where if you parry something with the same suit, that you get to ask a question, is actually a note that I got from Aaron. So thank you. It's one of my favorite little bits of things that can come up in a fight. That was a suggestion that he made when I was playtesting it in the group, and I loved it, and I thought it was so fun. And every time I've played it, that's something that people get really excited about. So thank you. With a game centered around the feeling of urgency and these growing emotions, the last round I knew couldn't be the same as the first. I was thinking about what could take the urgency to the next level, and I thought if you take the element of control away, where now you're pulling your hand 5 cards, the person who's the aggressor is no longer just turn taking, it's the person who is least injured from you tracking how many blood droplets and how many times you've gotten injured. If you are the least injured, you are the aggressor. Now it narratively has weight who is the aggressor and who is the opponent. I'm going to be the aggressor. This is my opponent, and we have our covered cards. So I'm going to lay down the first attack. Okay, 9 of spades. Let's see if fate lets them counter. Ooh, okay, a 9 of diamonds. They parry. First blow parried in this death match. Another 9 though, and an ace. They parry me again. They are really coming out pretty strong here, but I have a king. Let's see if fate let them parry now. Nope, it didn't. So that one they're going to take damage on. And then one last time, I'm going to go like this. It's got a 5. A 5, they parried this one. Okay, so one blow they haven't parried, and we each have 1 card left. At this point, we're going to take stock. Okay, they only got injured once, so they're going to be like, okay, so the card I dealt damage with was the King of Diamonds. You'd look up in the chart exactly what blow that was, and they're staggering. I got a really good hit in, but they did parry my very last stroke. That could have almost been a killing blow. So we'll see. Now, moment of truth. I go for the kill. 5. It's not the most impressive blow, but if it works, it works. And let's see if they could parry it. They did. At the very last second, they beat me. And that means the table's my turn. So, they beat me with an ace. Depending on exactly what relation, what type of card, what relation with cards, etc., there will be different outcomes to the game. This particular one means they beat me, and they beat me with a face card. So at the very last moment, they're near death, but they manage to get that last wind. They're just far enough away from it that maybe I let my guard down, and they were able to get the ace of clubs. So basically, we go to the damage chart, see what damage does this one do, and that is their killing blow to me. And the underdog of the fight, basically, in the end, wins. Now, the game has more narrative details that can come into play that are built in with cards as well, like your last words. There's little questions in between that can pop up. That's all in the end. That's all in the game. You can read up on it. But my main focus of what I want to think about here and what continues to inspire me and excite me about the design of this game and the design of PvP type games specifically, which has also helped me then inspire the hack of this game called For the Belt, where you play as former tag team partners from wrestling who have split. But you didn't see it coming, the one who was left behind. So one of you is the new heel, and the other is trying to figure out what happened to their partner and their partnership while you're at the very end of a career-defining and maybe career-ending match, as the kayfabe between your characters and your real relationship fades, blurs, and shatters between real hits. So that is a new dynamic and a new specific aspect of betrayal that was very exciting to try to explore and try to adapt this mechanic and the system to specifically, to evoke a more specific emotional experience and a slightly different emotional experience. This game's emotional core and goals, as well as the challenge of trying to mesh a clear vision for atmosphere and emotionality and a very specific type of mechanic that I was very set on from the beginning together and make it work and make them carry each other was an incredible challenge. It was extremely rewarding, and it's also something that I feel made me a more versatile designer, made me a better PvP designer. I actually ended up designing a bunch of PvP games this year, and starting with We Were One is probably why. So thank you very much, Playtest Zero. Thank you for the Perry Jam, and thank you for playtesting my game and helping me become a better designer. I hope that this inspires people to go pick up We Were One and or For the Belt, and also inspires more people to give PvP a chance. I know it's something that not everybody is comfortable with trying to design for, but it is really rewarding when you can explore it and pull it off.
All right, that's cool. We have another one coming up from Alex.
Months ago because I had a roommate problem. My roommate is great, but she doesn't like when I call her that. She prefers my wife, and really she prefers it in the Borat voice, but this is a serious presentation. I had a problem with my fictional, make-believe roommates in my anti-war rat game. Very serious. The problem was this. You and I are roommates, which means that your stuff is my stuff. And I guess it works the other way too, if it has to. But there has to be some kind of reciprocity. In Cyber Rats, the game that I brought to Playtest Zero, items are per mission. If you buy 3 jetpacks, that means every mission you can jetpack around 3 times. In order to encourage item usage, we added the roommate relationship, which allows item sharing in a way that mirrors how mechs can Voltron together and use each other's powers in the game. But this isn't a talk about Voltrons, it's a talk about how roommates are terrible. Not you, dear. The first model I had was a pressure cooker. The more we borrow from each other, the more the resentment builds up until eventually it boils over and the relationship is replaced with a worse one. This is fine, except it leads to a stalemate. One of us will borrow the other's item 3 times. Could be either one of us, there's no need to place blame. But one of us will borrow something 3, 4 times, and the meter will get too full, and then we'll both ignore it, not wanting to trigger that consequence. It becomes a vestigial mechanic, only there in case of a dire emergency. That's fine. It's not what I wanted. I wanted something a little more lively, something with a little more of a give and take. So my next model was this. When you take my item, we swing my way. When I take yours, we swing the other way. Too much in either direction, boom, that's a fight. That's when the relationship gets bad. So instead of just taking an item 3 times, it's I take yours twice. Hey, you'd better take one of mine because I want to borrow more of your stuff. I like this because it actually encourages sharing, which is a goal. Instead of just one roommate just taking all of the other stuff and never adding anything to the community pile, even though it was his idea and he complains if it's ever empty. Sorry. So then it just became a question of how to communicate this. And we settled on this. A clock. It just moves in one direction or the other as each of you borrows from the other. If I've figured out how to use animation, you'll see a clock just to my left, filling and emptying. If I haven't, you can imagine it with your eyes. Then you spend downtime bonding to grow the clock, changing from a 4 to a 6, or to swing it back to the middle by clearing your communal space. So, what did Playtest Zero teach me this year? That sometimes you just gotta do the dishes.
All right, nice. We have one more. A lot of A's this time. We've got Angel, Asa, Alex, and then Asa. Where's the?
Hey everybody, my name is Asa Donald and I publish games under Backwards Tabletop. And in 2025, I released 4 games. One of those is in beta still, that's Rust Never Sleeps. I published Spine, and I had a full draft of Mousetrap and Violent Delights. These are 2 new games that I'm currently working on. And hope to, I've started to bring one already to Playtest Zero, and that's Violent Delights for some asynchronous playtests of some of the early stages of the game. And then Rust Never Sleeps is something I brought back in January or February of 2025 to talk through some of the rules. So Rust Never Sleeps is the one that I'll focus on. It's a grunge solo RPG about mech pilots. These mech pilots are doomed. They know that they're going to fail. They're fighting a hopeless war against an authoritarian. And the way that the game works, the central premise is you have a deck of cards. It represents your mech's battery pack. And every time you use your mech, you're slowly depleting your battery. When you run out of cards, you've depleted your battery, your mech explodes. You burn out, basically. The way that the game works is, again, that goal is you're trying to complete a mission without running out of cards. It's blackjack inspired, so you're drawing 2 cards at a time. In this instance, it's a very traditional resolution mechanic. You're trying to get over a number or a threshold in order to succeed with your skills or your equipment. But the cool thing about it is, as in blackjack, you have a hit me mechanic. In this case, you punch the big red button on your character sheet. So in the bottom right, you have that big red button. I really wanted people to interact with the character sheet as part of this game, so you can smack it on the character sheet and you'll get an extra card. Your goal is to get as close as 21 as possible without going over, as it sort of is in blackjack as well. If you go over, you bust. You burn through your energy, your battery essentially, and you'll have to discard 3 cards. And you also have a narrative setback that you have to describe. Again, with this character sheet, there's a bunch of things I'm trying to do. You can also upgrade your mech, and as you upgrade your mech, you're meant to color in your the part that you've upgraded on your character sheet. You also light up the bulb with a certain color according to the part that you upgraded it with. And then on the back side of the character sheet, there's like a hole that looks into your mech. and you can see a battery in the different parts, and you connect wires to it. And again, the colors matter. They correspond with the part that you use to upgrade them. So I really wanted to make this character sheet something that that you interact with as part of the game. The other thing that I wanted to do with this character sheet is to make it resemble or mimic what your dashboard would actually look like if you were that player. Or if you were that mech pilot. So I want you to embody that mech pilot in the way, and the character sheet helps do that. Even when you're smacking that button, you get to embody your pilot in some ways. You're moving cards around. It's like you're flying your mech. The other thing that I try to do in this game, and maybe packed in a little bit too much of, is incorporate music and think about how you can use music as an oracle, how you can also take a track list of 10 tracks, hit shuffle, and use that as something that corresponds with an item on a table. So thinking about how music can inspire and help you invent as an oracle, but also how it can help set the vibe. So this is a grunge solo RPG. There's lots of disillusionment and rebellion in those in the themes of those songs. So I'm really interested in using those songs in a way that they might also be used in, for example, Ribbon Drive by Avery Alder too. So trying different things with music here. So I brought Rust Never Sleeps to Playtest Zero in January or February of 2025, but it's a solo game. So instead of playtesting it, I actually brought it to talk through some things. And I walked through the basic rules, and it was really helpful to see what questions were coming up for people as I was walking them through those rules. It helped me clarify some points of confusion, and also just think through some of the things at outside of the game text, even like how would I explain this to somebody else, or theoretically what am I trying to do in the abstract here. So a good example is I was describing how skills and equipment were different in Rust Never Sleeps than in traditional games, and it was a little bit difficult for me, but we had a great conversation where usually a situation prompts the use of a specific skill. In these traditional-esque games, you have agency to choose if you want to attempt that skill or not, right? So you have agency there. But in Rust Never Sleeps, you actually also have authority or authorial power. The idea is that you are not given a situation, you invent the very situation that allows you to use your skill or your equipment. So you're contributing and inventing part of that narrative that allows you to use those things. And it's a very different approach to it, sort of an inverted approach to the narrative here. Another game that I am bringing to Playtest Zero and just brought a couple of days ago here is Violent Delights. It's a chess-based RPG that's based on Romeo and Juliet, particularly the Capulet Masquerade, where the two protagonists meet and they kiss and they get sent on their merry way to their tragic deaths. In this game, you play the white pieces, who are the hosts, and among them are the Capulets, like Juliet and her nurse. And the other player plays the black pieces, the guests, and among them are the Montagues, including Romeo and Benvolio. And you basically narrate how the party unfolds, simulating it on your chessboard, and you're playing your cast of characters. And when you capture your partner's pieces, you also get a cool opportunity, if you want, to act out that scene in a Firebrand style minigame. So instead of just viewing the action zoomed out on the chessboard, now you get to actually act out that scene, a zoomed in perspective here. In chess, there's only one ending. Well, there's two endings. There's a stalemate or there's a checkmate. And a checkmate in this game would be that the other characters trap Romeo or Juliet within their expectations here. The Capulets and Montagues stay separate from each other. These characters are protected from their innocent love. I added another win scenario, which is that, well, Romeo and Juliet might meet in adjacent squares, allowing the kings to kiss, their pieces to kiss. Of course, that's the beginning of their journey to their violent end. So neither of these are really happy endings that come up here. They're both violent ends. You might feel drawn to one or more of those endings, but your goal in this game is just to create a good story and to stir up drama. So that's one that I'm currently playtesting asynchronously. As you move pieces in Violent Delights, you narrate who those pieces are and what they're doing. So a servant takes 2 steps, or a pawn takes 2 steps forward, and they are setting up decorations at the masquerade, for example. So I'm sort of testing some of those early parts of the game for Violent Delights. Spine is a game that I put out this year. It's a dark solo RPG about losing yourself in a book. I was really interested in turning the game text into an object that you interact with and play with. In this game, you're playing a researcher. You literally embody that researcher as they read the book. And for each page, you pick an endnote, and that endnote tells you what the magical occurrences that are happening in this book. You soon realize you're being sucked into the book, and the way to resist it is by defacing the book. So that's Spine. And then finally, there's Mousetrap, which is my most ambitious and extremely experimental game. It is a game within a game, about getting trapped in the magic circle. And the idea is that you have 2 sets of mini games. One of them, you are playing yourself, a player, sitting at a table to play a game, a curse game called The Curse of Castle Muldoon. And in the other mini game, you're playing your character, this character who's in a Hamlet pastiche. They're an attendant lord, a lady, or a guest. They're trying to figure out who killed the king, and really bad things are happening in the game. And the way that it works is towards the end of the first session of Mousetrap, your player that you're playing in one set of the mini games and their character, which is in the other set of mini games, swap places. So suddenly you are your Hamlet-inspired character talking to other players, and then you are your player in the fictional world that the characters were just living in, where all these bad things are happening. And the goal is you have to find out how to get that player out of the fictional game world and back to reality, and so forth. So it's a really bizarre game, extremely ambitious, and I'm trying to make it happen. So 2025 in retrospect, this is my final slide here. And it was like December of 2024. I just felt inspired to step out of the sort of OSR and traditional space that I've been engaged in since 2019. And solo games are really what drove me out of there. That's why both Spine and Rust Never Sleeps, which were my focus at the beginning of the year, were both solo games. So I've been interested in solo games. I've also obviously been interested in experimenting. So music, the medium, playing with books, but also metagames is something I've been looking at more. And then I'm really interested in repurposing and reframing existing rules, like with blackjack and with chess. And I know a lot of people are really excited about box RPGs. I'm less excited about them. Not just because of tariffs and other things, but I don't want to have all these extra moving pieces or unique moving pieces. I like to use things that I already have at hand. And for me, Violent Delights and using chess is sort of like an anti-box RPG, because you have all these unique pieces, but ideally you already have them somewhere at home. These are really common pieces that you might have. So I'm really interested in playing around with those rules and repurposing them. I'm obviously interested in mini games, and I'm interested in those because there's lots of different ways that our narratives are fragmented in tabletop role-playing games, especially in like traditional games. But with mini games, they're especially fragmented because the narrative happens within each of these mini games, but they're separate from one another. And you might reframe the next mini game and explain what happened in that gap between the previous mini game. They're vignettes in many ways. And I think Firebrands does a really cool job of piecing together these stories that are otherwise fragmented. I'm really interested in how we can leverage that fragmentation in a way that I described in Mousetrap, where you have 2 separate narratives going on in these mini games, and suddenly the mini game sets collide with each other. And then finally, I've also been really inspired by Shakespeare, apparently, because my 2 games at the end of this year, Violent Delights and Mousetrap, have been really interested in Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet, respectively. So that's what I've got. I'm looking forward to hanging out and play testing more games in 2026 and Playtest Zero. Thank you.
All right, that's cool. I will also. This will be our last video one, and then we have Sasha is coming live after this. So Oh shit. Oops.
Meet you all. I'm Yanahn, a Malaysian tabletop games designer currently based in the UK. You can find me on social media, on Blue Sky and on itch.io as Yanahn. And I wanted to say thank you so much for having me here. Big thank you to Aaron and all the other organizers of Showcase Zero for the wonderful opportunity to speak on the game design and the stuff I've been up to in the last year. And also wanted to say thanks to all the folks I've met over the various Session Zero playtests. It's been really cool having TTRPG discussions with you all. So, on to the big thing I've been working on in the last year has been Enter the Whalefall, which is my system agnostic fantasy adventure zine. You can see that as I kick the sort of slides on. So yeah, Enter the Whalefall is a fantasy adventure zine in an A5 format that I've been writing and drafting, and it follows basically an adventuring party having to deal with a mystery about why a lot of beached whales washing up are necromantically animated. The answer is a bunch of necromancers in the deep sea that are trying to resurrect a dead whale god that you're all gonna have to now deal with, basically. A lot of the, I think, drive behind Whalefall actually came from a desire to share, my love of marine biology and weird creature facts with the rest of, with a hopefully appreciative audience. Whalefalls are an interesting thing where the bodies of whales sink into the deeps, are basically consumed and recycled back into the ecosystem by octopi, crabs, squids, and worms that eat bone marrow. There's also a lot of other weird stuff I found while trawling through marine biology servers or locations and research. Whether it was the 50-meter long giant colony organism jellyfish thing called the siphonophore, the fact that multiple things in the depths use light not just to find food like anglerfish, but also just to draw in predators so they can escape. Imagine if an octopus or a squid, instead of shooting ink, shot out bioluminescent fluid to draw in bigger fish to try to eat the fish that was trying to eat them. Because of that, there was just a lot of really interesting stuff that I wanted to put about the marine ecosystem into an adventure, and I think researching it was a really fun time, but I think after that there was this comedy of various different the challenges kind of changed up when I actually started writing, as you can see by the fact that it ended up being comedically technical writing heavy all in all. So the big challenge was I'd come into this adventure design with the aim of as many weird marine creatures as possible. Anglerfish, pelagic snails, the giant siphonophore, and then translating that into, say, I guess, playable, exciting things rather than a delivery mechanism for marine facts was I think the big challenge after that. It was just, so the Whalefall became okay, what's a good way to showcase that? Well, wouldn't it be cool to fight necromancers in a dungeon that is the corpse of a giant whale god? A deitic Whalefall, basically. And then modeling things like the bioluminescence translated into, say, the nature of, I think, the way using light and how much light to use and how that affects, I guess, the depth crawl, the deep ocean depth crawl that's being used to basically simulate how your characters will descend into the depths. If you use too much light, you draw more attention from creatures like large aggressive marine creatures who might want to see you as food, who might be beckoned towards you because they think, oh, this is a interesting entity. You draw interest. But on the other hand, if you don't use enough light and your party doesn't have the ability to see in the dark, well, you're all gonna stumble. You're not gonna see anything until you stumble upon it. So, the fun challenges there as well, along with variations in weather. The Bay region hex crawl that's included in the adventure sort of changes up. It gets more and more dangerous and magical as the necromantic ritual to revive the god comes into fruition. So you can see things like light changes how you go. There's different paths for you to go into the depths. Whether, I think one of the things I was quite pleased with was one of the routes is the Spine of the Whale God route, where you follow, I think, the remnants of that deity left behind before it rests in the Leviathan's graveyard. And it's a route that high risk, high reward in a weird way. You're fighting necromantic, the route boosts ambient magic, and then you get things and so if you're a high magic party, good for you. Problem is, you're fighting necromancers, so they're also going to be a bit buffed as well. So it's a fun sort of like, I think thinking of different ways to make things like more interactive and playable was one of the interesting like challenges from the brief, because rather than like a pure scenario, I had to derive the scenario from miscellaneous ocean facts that I was really happy to want to share with people, and I think which I hope will resonate with people. So I think that's why I bring up a lot of it ends up being more of a technical writing related challenge, because you're thinking of like what aspects are playable, and it's something I learned a lot from watching like various playtests in the Session Zero server, because you'll see like challenges like delivering information on a more atypical setting, how to get the key mystery and points set up in an economical, succinct way, whether it's like how people tend to interact with like aspects of games or mechanics as they work things out. And I think as I kept learning as well from like my experiences GMing one-shots and campaigns, where it was just, okay, so, and also just asking people like what do they want out of adventure, when I was asking in the server, like just, and you hear like folks saying things like adventures as a guide, like as a guideline, or folks might want more interested in the pick up and play aspect. So thinking about that really translated to like the shifting from the idea phase into the technical writing phase, which was more, okay, so yeah, how do I make it easy for GMs to reference things? So there'll be points where there'll be little aside boxes going like, okay, by this point in the mystery, your players should have X, Y, and Z pieces of information. Here's the easy bits to reference. Because I did see some like comments that sometimes adventure documents will, to preserve the mystery, preserve it even from the GM who's reading through it. So easy way to like, so I wanted to make it easier to like reference. So there'll be charts saying like, here are the routes as a GM, here are the various things you need to know to run this thing properly, or however you so wish it. Actually, to be fair, it's a flexi module. And then with players, it was just like having lots of choices. Where do you want to explore in the bay? Do you want to go more like magic, like a more technical route to get deep?
One moment. I think something's up with the video. I will endeavor to bring it back as soon as possible. Give me 1 second. I think I just have to restart the video. I think something.
Hello, it's nice to meet you all. I'm Yanahn, a Malaysian tabletop. Is the brief, because tend to interact with like aspects of games or mechanics as they work things out. And I think as I kept learning as well from like my experiences GMing one-shots and campaigns, where it was play aspect. So thinking about that really translated to like the shifting from the idea phase into the technical writing phase, which was more, okay, so yeah, how do I make it easy for GMs to reference things? So there'll be points where there'll be little aside boxes going like, okay, by this point in the mystery, your players should have X, Y, and Z pieces of information. Here's the easy bits to reference. Because I did see some like comments that sometimes adventure documents will, to preserve the mystery, preserve it even from the GM who's reading through it. So easy way to like, so I wanted to make it easier to like reference. So there'll be charts saying like, here are the routes as a GM, here are the various things you need to know to run this thing properly, or however you so wish it. Actually, to be fair, it's a flexi module. And then with players, it was just like having lots of choices. Where do you want to explore in the bay? Do you want to go more like magic, like a more technical route to get into the depths? Are you more of a like interested in like, I guess, the whale deity itself? Whether you're talking to like local marine folk or something in that route, like different bits you can interact with, different anomalies to see. And yeah, so hopefully like with that, it was just an interesting challenge as someone who's more, I think, written more games, and I think started with like more shorter adventures to go into a big built out adventure alongside like I think simulating the ocean environment, which I feel very strongly about, with variances in depth, with different I think depth was a big one. Even in the hex crawl, there's different like levels of like how deep you can go, what encounters you get will change up as well. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to like share this with the world. You can find the adventure in the bundle. So yeah, along with a lot of really exciting and cool stuff. So really excited for it. Did want to say thank you again, and hope this was interesting to people, and also hope this might encourage some people to Google some weird marine life. I personally recommend like siphonophores, but honestly, the pelagic snails might be a good one to check out, along with honestly, please just Google like ammonites. They're cute. Some of them have shells that look like a paperclip shape. Cool. Thank you so much.
All right. Sorry for the technical hiccup on my end. But yeah, we'll go move on to Sasha next, who will be presenting live in a sec.
Hello. I'm Sasha Reneau. I am relatively new to Playtest Zero, and I'm very, very happy to be here. The game that I playtested at Playtest Zero won't be out for some time, I think. But I learned a great deal from it. I'll speak on it in the abstract, if that's all right. It's inspired by the works of the game designer collective You Are Beheld. And the thing that I want to address or talk about today is making a game for high trust tables, which is a bit out of my. I'm used to designing games that are pick up and play, which are you can bring to a table of strangers and just get right into. When I say high trust tables, what I'm talking about is a group that is familiar with each other, fond of each other, and eager to explore hard or awkward subjects together. By their nature, kind of difficult to find in the wild. For playtesting purposes, usually a high trust table is already orbiting a game that they're familiar with and comfortable with. They're also difficult, but immensely rewarding to cultivate. They just take time and effort and social maneuvering and whatnot. The things that you can expect from a high trust table that they will be able to do are entertain themselves. These are people who know each other well and know what buttons will result in what laughs and that kind of thing. A high trust table, you can pretty much trust to know the basics of role playing, or at least have some kind of setup that they've settled into. You can trust them to spiral away from the mechanics without a little bit of structure. There is nothing so tempting as a bit. And you can also trust a high trust table to be able to engage in good bleed. That is to say, to get really emotionally involved and invested in the game that they're playing. On the other side, what does a high trust table expect from a game? Some of these things may be having motivating mechanics. That is to say, why do any given thing instead of just doing a bit to entertain your friends? Along that line, a game might paint them into a corner. That is to say, make the core of the game unavoidable as well as alluring. And alluring in part because they are able to use the game mechanics to target others. That is more along the lines of like, how can they use this game to delight and enthrall their fellow players in unexpected ways, in ways that they wouldn't organically or through a different game. And the last thing that especially pertains to the game that I'm designing, trying to get into the sort of strange and weird and oblique ways in which we relate to each other, what does a high trust table need to be safe? And from the game text itself, what I found is that it needs clear-cut expectations of play, both in form, how they're going to engage in the mechanics towards the game and towards each other, and in content, what kinds of subject matter are going to come up over the course of the game. Part of that is communicating what lines you want to be crossed, and encouraging and inviting desired transgressions. Like if I've made a character who's really, really uptight and stiff-lipped, I might, as a player, be like, I want you to put this character in. I want you to embarrass my character because it's funny to me, and I get to be flustered and like stammer and do all these strange things that my character otherwise unprovoked would not do. And making sure that you are giving the kind of feedback, not just like not just giving feedback in that, like, when this happens to your character you react well to it, but sort of setting yourself up, uh, giving a good pitch to your fellow players to kind of knock it out of the park. If you'll excuse a baseball reference. Along with that is a high trust table needs, in order to be safe, a spectrum of expressions for pushing back against ideas. So not just a full stop, I don't want this in the game, but because you are playing with transgression, you need to be able to say when your ew, that's gross, is playful or cautionary, or a full stop, ew, that's gross. You know? There are tools that I'm not the only person tackling this particular problem challenge, as it were. You've probably heard of J Dragon's palette grid. If not, it's worth looking up. It's a marvelous tool for setting expectations at the beginning of play, and also sort of moving things around during play as the game evolves. That, but also the ability to pause the game in as simple a way as, can you repeat that, or like a time out, time back in sort of tool. There's a lot to support this kind of play, and I think that a lot of this boils down to being able to move in and out of like types of confrontation, which with a high trust table is very different than a like a one shot with strangers, for instance. Not to say that it is better, it is just different. And the final thing that I've been chewing on is looking at safety as in these different stages, right? You got the setup in which you can use like the palette grid to sort of set expectations. Excuse me. You've got being able to address things as they come up through the follow through, and then you've got sort of landing the plane at the end of the game with how you are coming down from these emotional and heightened modes of expression and interaction. So this has been, I've been bringing this to Playtest Zero and being able to, excuse me, have really fruitful conversations about the kinds of gameplay that I am after, and posing this interaction in a way that is safe and enjoyable for everybody. So I appreciate very much the opportunity to do that, and will hopefully continue to. Again, this game won't be available for some time, but it's I am pleased to be able to talk about it, at least obliquely. Thank you very much.
All right. So that was it. That was it for all our presentations. Thank you so much to everyone who did a presentation, who sent in a video or presented live. Thanks, Angel, Alex, Asa, Yanahn, and Sasha. Thank you so much. And also, please check out the Showcase Zero bundle that's live on Itch, and will continue to be live on Itch for the rest of the month, of January. So you can go check that out on itch.io. And as I mentioned before, this marks the kickoff for 2026 season of Playtest Zero, starting this Tuesday and Thursday and continuing every other week. And we will make announcements for when we do our mid-year play party, play weekend. And also, you'll know when it comes to the end of the year. And also, if there's any other things that happen in addition to our regular fortnightly playtests every other week. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. It's been 2025 has been a tough year, and 2026 continues to be the same. The world continues to move, and we move with it, and we'll continue making things and try and find ways to make our lives more playful and worth living, even in the horrors. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for Showcase Zero. This will also go archived up on YouTube. I'll post the link for all of that as well. And yeah, see you in Playtest Zero this year. Thank you, everyone.